Hey everybody, it's Danielle. Welcome to like the 57th take of my intro to this week's podcast. I'm not going to lie. I spoke with Jessica Vibberts, self-proclaimed chocolate snob, number one. Number two, CEO and founder of Full Potential Ventures. And number three, my hero for just chucking it all, moving her family down to Mexico because she just had to experience it. We touched on a multitude of topics, including her work, immigration, and, everything in between. So enjoy the episode. Subscribe when you're done, and we'll see you next week. Recording.
Yeah, we're going to start like that.
It's my favorite part.
You say that every time.
I know. I can't. I know. I can't help it. All right.
What are we doing?
Hi, Phil.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Welcome to Jessica. Jessica, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Jessica Vibberts, right?
Yep.
Okay. It's so funny because I always know the last names of the people in the sense that I've been reading them and I've been seeing them. But when I speak to people, I don't actually say, hi, Jessica Vibberts. How are you? And then I think, maybe I should confirm like how to.
Or you could just go straight last name and just call her Vibberts.
JV is what most people call me.
JV.
Oh, really?
JV.
Can I call you JV?
So my last organization that I worked in before I quit my job and didn't have a job,
Yeah.
There were 12 Jessicas.
Oh, my God.
My gosh.
So I needed a different name.
What was your number, though? Did you have a number first?
Were you the first Jessica?
Like,
or?
No.
No.
I worked at a place where the Joes were numbered. Like Joe 5 was the guy I worked with.
No.
That's
JV.
why she ended up with JV. I like JV. Can I call you that around here?
Sure.
Oh my gosh, I really love it. I totally love it. The other day, it's nice and kind of awkward, like when you're working in a space with a bunch of people all day, every day, but you never actually take the moment to like shake the hand and hi, my name is Danielle Strobel. And so there have been many occasions in which a member has walked up to me and whispered like, I know I've been talking to her for months and I don't really know her name. Can you tell me? And they'll describe like what she's wearing or
I just had a great idea.
What's your great name tags? Don't say name
just
tags.
one day a week or a month.
Of what?
Yeah,
Name
but
tags.
Nobody comes every day.
Yeah,
I know.
So
that's the thing. And it's just,
I know, but over the period of a month or two, it's like you're likely to catch somebody's name.
But there's a cute guy that works here, and I really want to know, or like comes sometimes. And
Yeah.
Boy, that's a.
I actually know his name,
Oh.
but I don't know enough to like really
To really
stalk
talk
him and
to him?
find him on the internet. I tried.
Oh, maybe after the
But no,
show
I'm
you
not
can
going to tell
me
you
who it
any
is.
more about who he is.
There's a few of those around here that I think people are like, I'd like to know a little more about that person.
So JV, what do you do?
JV.
I don't stalk
What
people.
do you- She doesn't stalk people. I would like for you to introduce us to what Full Potential Ventures is. And
Sure.
at some point today, I must have you tell your story about how you relocated to Mexico. This is, I will let her tell
that's
the
like
story
your
because
dream.
I know. She walked in one day, I think it was probably the day you took the tour, that I found out your story. And immediately I was in love with her. I'm like, this is who I aspire to be in many ways, not just because you picked up your family and moved to Mexico, which is something at some point I will do, but it was a fantastic story. So
It's probably a more fascinating story than Full Potential Ventures for anybody
you're
who
not
may
a
be
Moonie,
listening to
are
this.
you?
I don't know what that is.
Oh,
yeah, we had Ed,
we had a
Ed
guest on that used to be a Moonie.
Ed went to Guatemala with his family.
Yeah, there was a whole movement in the 70s.
The Moonies? You haven't heard of the Moonies? Okay, look it up.
Super interesting. Well, you can talk about it. It's actually, we did a whole episode with Ed Hines, who is one of the members here, and he told the story.
Yeah, don't
His
tell the
wedding
story
is
now.
on the front
Are
of
you
the
gonna do
Time
that?
magazine.
We'll bring that back.
I'll send you the link to that episode.
And you guys could probably totally do part of this in Spanish, huh?
Claro que sí.
Yeah, I'm very intimidated about speaking Spanish.
Okay, anyway, do your thing. So,
Tell us about, just start us with the Mexico story, because I think it's a really good kind of segue into what Full Potential Ventures is and what you're doing now.
So after about 20 years of working in mostly the nonprofit sector in executive leadership positions, I had a moment of being ready for transition, and that's a whole other crazy soap opera story that is for some other podcast. Okay. However, so I was CEO of an organization at that time, and I was going to move on. And as I was thinking about my next steps, including interviewing for other CEO positions, my husband said, wait, time out. When you got pregnant, we had an 8-year-old at the time, an 8.5-year-old. When you got pregnant, you said we would live in a Spanish-speaking country for at least 6 months because you really wanted her to speak Spanish. And if you go somewhere else, like you throw yourself into your work full on, we are not doing that. You said it would happen by the time she's 8. She's 8.5. Like, I'll support you in whatever you want to do, but I just, like, this is a moment to pause. And so I was like, you're right. We haven't been saving. We haven't been preparing. My mind hasn't been in this place. Like, I was born with a strategic plan in my hand and, like, followed those steps. And
you're one of those.
I was one of those. I was
Oh, okay.
one of those.
Was.
We just said, fuck it. And within 3 months, I laid myself off from my job. We sold or gave away 75% of our possessions. We rented out our house. We sold our car. And we packed up and got on a plane to move to Mexico, to a place we had never been to. We hadn't even heard of it until a friend of ours introduced us to the name of Guanajuato.
Wow.
And we were like, Guana what? How do you spell that?
Guanagoan.
Where's that? Yeah, where's that at? Like, huh? And we got on a plane with 5 suitcases and ourselves. Hadn't slept in 2 weeks because we were just getting the house ready for renters and being gone. And if my daughter were to tell the story, she'd say, we said we were going for 3 weeks. And then 3 weeks became 6, and then 6 became a month, or a month and a half, or to 2 months, and then it became 3 months, 6 months, blah, 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 and then it was a year. And then that year actually turned into 2, with the last half of the last year being traveling throughout Europe and Morocco. And so it was a huge... Like I said, I was born with a plan, and for me to just, like, pull up, not have a job, not have an idea what was going to come after.
Good for you, man.
Was super different.
Have chills, like, just thinking about it. I mean, you said that you hadn't been saving. So when you sold your house, you sold everything that you needed to sell. When you landed in Mexico, presumably you had at least a sketch of an idea in your head of, like, how you were going to survive fiscally in another country for a year. And presumably selling your house may have helped you.
No, so we didn't sell our house. We kept our house. We rented it out. And that we were able to rent for our expenses here, like our mortgage, insurance, taxes, all that stuff, plus some. So that paid for our rent in Mexico. So, it was a little bit. Rent in Mexico was not a lot. And I mean, the crazy thing was we reprioritized so much, and I can't, like, we were not huge spenders. But, like, when you start looking at everything that you spend on, and I'd heard people say that before, we saved enough in the 3 months between making the decision and leaving to live for a year in Mexico.
Oh my God.
Oh wow, just locking it down.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's where, at least for me, I have 2 big challenges, not to say they can't be overcome, but when I think about something like this, and I have spent an inordinate amount of time thinking about how I could do something like this. And my 2 challenges obviously are financially. Like I haven't been a saver. That's a challenge for me. So I have no doubt, though, that I could do anything to make a wage anywhere. It's just something innate within me. Like, that doesn't scare me. But just the whole transition of, like, how do I get from here to there? The second, obviously, is because I have, the children and dads to think about. And I don't, that's more of a logistical thing. It's like, for me, I don't care to take my kids away from dad. So whatever, it can happen in a few years. But the fiscal thing, I think, really paralyzes a lot of people, the unknown. But you just went for it.
What's so funny is that I cannot tell you how many people have said, oh my God, we wish that we could do that. And I've had really, really wealthy friends who have been board members of organizations that I've sat on who've said, oh, I wish we would have done that. And so obviously for them, it was not financial that was the obstacle. And I honestly believe anybody can do maybe not exactly the same thing.
Right.
And it matters like how long and how far. I mean, going to Mexico, we were able to put away enough money for Mexico for a year. Yeah. If we wanted to live in France, it would have been a totally different scenario, like Paris versus Guanajuato. Yeah. I mean, the truth is we could live very comfortably, including travel funds, on $1,000 a month in Mexico. And I could
totally do this.
Yeah, you could.
I will. I think if I could actually, as my kids, my daughter's 13, my son is still very little. I can even imagine, not that I want to be away from my daughter, but I can already see with her age and her interest in other things, how it's not going to be me waiting until I'm 18 or till they're 18. Yeah. It can happen much sooner. Yeah. They can be with their father. Mexico, of course, is much easier to consider, obviously, because it's so close for us here. Yeah. So definitely.
You can do 3 months.
So you landed in Guanajuato. Where is this anyway? Where part of Mexico is this?
It's in central Mexico. It's 6,700 feet. It's basically equidistant from the coasts. It's and roughly not exactly, but roughly halfway between Mexico City and Guadalajara. Okay. So it's a colonial city. It's the seat of the independence of Mexico. So it's a real tourist spot for Mexican nationals, but not for international people.
Kind of place.
And it's part of why we chose it, because we didn't want to be surrounded by a large expat community. We wanted to be immersed in the culture. We wanted to be forced to speak Spanish. My daughter went to school, 4th grade in Mexico at a Mexican school. And most people know Guanajuato more as the neighbor to San Miguel de Allende, which is about 45 minutes away, and is filled with gringos.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's like that's a place that I want to go, San Miguel de Allende, but I'm like you. I kind of don't want to be hanging out with a bunch of Americans or Canadians. Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but if I'm going to travel to Mexico, I want to be a part of the Mexican culture.
Right.
So
Guanajuato is a great
All right, I'm adding that to my list of my.
It's a 3.5 hour flight direct from Oakland, and so I had been, for 2 years previous to our move, I had been commuting to Oakland full time, and I would leave the house at like 4 a.m. to miss the traffic, and I come home more like 7 or 8 at night to miss the traffic. And so my joke, because I did have to come back a few times once I started the business and did some work here, my joke was that it was actually easier to commute to Oakland from Guanajuato than it was from Petaluma.
I'm not surprised by that, actually. I had a similar thought when I went down to Mexico in January. I was like, wow, this was... Do you remember, not far before that, I went to Oakland to the hospital with my son, and I was like...
You were loving it.
This blows. And when I went to Mexico, I was like, wow, my day literally was the same length today, and I'm in Mexico, and I'm 2 time zones away. Yeah, it was great.
So they fly direct from Oakland.
Yeah, it's kind of a crappy flight going there, because it's basically an overnight flight, but with the time difference, you wind up being on the plane only for 4 hours. So you leave at midnight, you arrive at 6 a.m. But you're only on the plane for 4 hours, so you don't actually sleep. Right. So we got into a rhythm when we were doing it, or like the few times that we had to do it, where you just land, you go straight to your Airbnb or home, and you sleep until 2 p.m, and then you get up, which is totally fine, because in Mexico, everything's at night.
Right.
And that was a huge adjustment for my daughter, who loves to sleep. Imagine. She goes to bed early, so that like parties and things don't start until 10 o'clock.
I was love that a little bit much. I love
cray for her.
Yeah, when I took my kids to Spain, we experienced the same thing. It was it's just that everything is moved forward about 6 hours in terms of your existence.
My kind of place.
Except the kids still have to get up and go to school.
That's what's very strange to me, because I know we talk about this a lot, and it was like, but you're still waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning to get or 7 o'clock in the morning to get your kids to school. So they're not sleeping. I used to argue with my ex-husband a lot about this, because he was like, oh, well, the kids in Spain do it. I've always been like, kids go to bed at a certain hour. They need the sleep. Oh, in Spain we do it. I'm like, yeah, but they're getting up at the same hour, so you're actually sleeping less hours.
Yeah.
So
we have very